so if you just signed in, we are doing the quinoa stuffed bell pepper tonight. And then I'm also doing an alternative for if you don't want to use quinoa, you can use millet. And I find that millet and cheese go hand in hand. They're very, very good pairings. This recipe is think of it as like a good way to use farmers market produce. So you got your bell peppers, you got chilies, you got, in the recipe they call for onion powder and garlic powder, which I'm going to go through, but I'm also going to do a fresh produce variety with the millet. So that way you can substitute in and out what you want for the different options. So I'm going to do the quick one, which is going to be just quinoa, and then I'm going to do the one that has a lot more produce that you would get at the supermarket or a farmer's market with the millet. So that way you have both perspectives. Okay, so let's start off with the bell peppers. You first want to prepare your bell peppers, and there's a myth. I just wanted to point this out. There's a myth that if you look at the bottom of a bell pepper, that if it's 4, it's a female. If it's 3, if it's male. No, that's a myth. The level of sweetness in the bell pepper is going to depend on where it's at and its level of maturation. So I recommend that you choose a variety of different colors for the bell pepper. And the reason why for that is, so I'm using 4 different colors here of bell pepper. And the reason why, if we're thinking about choosing food that is, like looking at as food as medicine, food to help our bodies heal and nurture our bodies, the different colors that we get mean that there's a different nutrient profile, and we're going to get all these vitamins and minerals that are really going to be beneficial to our well-being. So you can do all green bell peppers. That's probably what the recipe called for. It's a standard. But if you want a little bit of a variety, you want to diversify your nutrition with all the colors of the rainbow, getting different colored bell peppers is a way to go. Okay, let's go over how to cut and prepare the bell peppers. Now, so this one is probably, I wanted to get this one to show you, this one's probably not the better option for stuffed bell pepper. You can use it, but see how it's really, really tall and has a narrow base. It can stand, which is fine, but you're going to run the risk of when you move this from the baking sheet into the oven that it's going to be wobbly. So if you have one that's really narrow, you want to pair it up and place it near one that's going to be a little bit more stable. And ideally we would have some space between them so that air in the oven can circulate and cook these more evenly. But if you went it on accident got like a narrower one, you would want to kind of put those together. So I'm going to show you how to cut with the more wide base option, okay? And you're going to cut right through here, okay? And you're going to pull that top off. So I'm going to do that real fast. Okay, so I have my top and I have the bottom. Now you have the seeds and then you have all these different connective tissues right here. We're going to cut through that area and then we're just going to pull out the seeds. The seeds you can discard, but this top part, let's talk about this. What I recommend is that you tear off the stem. Okay, you can discard the stem, but with your remaining bell pepper, you can slice this up or dice it, and you can use it in your salads. Or one thing I want to recommend to everyone is you start having a reserve vegetable bag, okay, vegetable bag that you put in your freezer. So Ziploc baggy, big quart size one or gallon size one, where you just put scraps, veggie scraps like this into. And what you can do over time is once that bag is filled up, so you put, like, in the green onions when you have the little, the roots, you chop the green onion off and you have the roots, save those, put those in the bag. The not so pretty parts of the onion that you chop up, peel off the paper part, but the really thick onion shell, you put that in there. Any vegetable scrap, put that in there, save it. Once the bag is full, you can use it to make veggie stock. And in the future, we will do that. We will make veggie stock. Okay, let's go back to our bell pepper, because that homemade veggie stock is by far better than anything you could ever find at the store. Two options. You can just rip this out, toss it, or if you want it to be more visually appealing, you're going to cut. So I'm going to cut off that connective siding. Okay, so the base is still connected, and you're just going to pull and remove it, and then you have this nice open area. You can get the seeds all out. It's the seeds they're kind of bitter, and they're not spicy. So dealing with bell pepper seeds, it's very, very low on that spice scale. Now there are some people that say this like white flesh here on the sides is bitter. You can use your knife and cut that out. I don't really notice a difference, but it's your personal choice. Okay, so once the top has been cut, you have your nice basin that we're going to put our stuffing in. Hey, look how pretty that is. I like that. Think of food as medicine. So we're getting our reds. We're getting our, I'm going to go ahead and do this one so we make good use of it. You're using your reds, greens, yellows. Think of about that when you are meal planning or cooking. What colors can I add in my food? So let's say a recipe calls for a particular varietal of something, like carrots. Maybe instead of using your orange carrots, if you see at the store that they have like purple carrots, maybe you try those. Okay, so that prioritization of getting all the different colors in your diet is what really helps us be healthy, thriving individuals. Okay, so there's this thin one, see? And we're gonna pair this thin one with a wider one, maybe put it in the middle, so that way it won't fall over once we put it into the oven. Okay, so I already have a baking sheet that has parchment paper on it, and I've already cut and cleaned some of these bell peppers. And look how pretty that is. You got all these different colors. Okay, this is what we're going to be using to fill, or these are the bell peppers that we're going to put the filling in. I'm going to put half of it with the quinoa filling, half of it with the millet filling. So we're going to go to the filling process. So get in your bowl. I'm cutting the recipe in half because I'm going to use half of it with quinoa and following the recipe just with half of the ingredients. And then I'm going to make another batch that's going to be millet with all the fresh produce. So that way you have two options. So this option that I'm going to go over now, this would be you're short on time. Okay, you can make this in the weekend. You could put the filling in the fridge and then pull it out. All you would have to do is set your oven, cut your bell peppers and stuff, and you're good to go. So this one is the quick to go option. Okay, so we're going to start off. I'm using half measurement. So you would use your 3 cups of quinoa you would have. I'm going to use 1.5 cups for this recipe. So I already have some pre-made quinoa, and this is the red grain quinoa. Okay, red grain, so it's chewier. Okay, and you can use quinoa in place of rice in many of your dishes. So I'm going to put 1.5 cups, so that's a I'm just eyeballing it. Okay, 1.5 cups of quinoa. So you want to mix the veggies first and then add in your cheese, because if you just signed in this recipe, you want to add a little bit more cheese than what the recipe calls for. Just trust me. Okay, I got my chilies. I'm using Hatch chilies, and I'm using more because I typically go for spicier foods. So you can leave these out if you don't like spicy. It's up to you. Hatch chilies, this would be great to use them in season, but they have them canned, so I'm using a canned one. So remember, this is the fast recipe. So you just dump those right in.
Alex, did you drain those?
Yes, I did drain those. Good question.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, drain them, and then, but not for the tomatoes. So these are the Petite diced tomatoes. You can drain them if you want, but I'm just dumping it in. Okay. So Petite diced tomatoes. So that's about half a cup, quarter cup in that range. I'm going with half the recipe. All right. So I'm going to use a quarter. As you hear my cat, that's Bubbles. He's getting upset over something. Okay, I'm going to use about a half cup of black beans. These are canned black beans. You can use dried beans that you soaked overnight, and then I would pre-cook them. I would bring them up to a boil to about 5 minutes after you let them sit overnight. You wash them, sit them overnight, bring it up to a boil for 5 minutes so that they're a little pre-cooked. It's a lot easier to use the canned ones. So remember, this is the quick and easy recipe. So black beans go in. All right. Next, corn. You can use drained canned corn. You can use frozen corn that you've heated up in the microwave. This you definitely want to drain so that there's not any residual moisture. So I'm using half of this. Okay, this is about, let's see. So the recipe typically calls for 1 cup. So I'm going to put 1/2 cup of corn in there. And remember, I'm making a half of the amount for this filling. Okay, let me go make sure. Okay, so we got those together. Let's add some cilantro. If you don't want to use cilantro, so I have some chopped cilantro. It's going to require 3 tablespoons for the full recipe, 1.5 tablespoons for, wow, he is upset. Bubbles. He's a Siamese, he's really loud. Okay, 1.5 tablespoon for a half recipe. Now, if you want to use something different than cilantro, you can use like Italian parsley or curly parsley. That would be a good substitute if you have those, if cilantro tastes soapy to you. So add the chopped cilantro in. Now that we have our veggies in, you stir that together so that they are well mixed. And I just want to show you what the colors look like. Okay, remember how I said, look at food as medicine? Look at all the different colors that we're getting so far. You got reds, yellows, you have dark purple colors, okay? All right, spice blend. So garlic powder. So for the garlic powder, I just want to double check I'm doing the right measurements. So it's calling for 1 tablespoon garlic powder and onion powder. I'm sorry, 1 teaspoon, excuse me, 1 teaspoon. You know what you like best. I'm going to be following the instructions on this one. So I'm putting in the recommended amount. So for half the recipe, it's ½ teaspoon. It would be 1 teaspoon of garlic powder for the full. And I'm going to put ½ a teaspoon of onion powder. You would do 1 full teaspoon for the full recipe. Okay, cumin. So it's saying about 1 teaspoon of cumin. So I'm gonna divide that in half because I'm doing half, so that's ½ a teaspoon for the one. And then for chili powder, it says ½ teaspoon. If you like spicy, you would want to go with more. Just double checking, yeah. Because the fresh varietal stuff, I'm going to make it spicy. Okay, so I like spicy, so I'm going to put a whole ½ teaspoon in this, even though I'm doing half of it. So it's up to you. And you can leave this out if you don't want it to be spicy. So this is chili powder. Okay, then you would want to add your salt. And the instructions say to salt as required to your liking. I'm just going to put about a ¼ teaspoon to ½ a teaspoon. So for the full recipe, I would say 3/4 teaspoon to a whole teaspoon of salt. Okay, fresh ground black pepper. And you're going to stir all those together. We have not added the cheese yet. The cheese is going to go in next. Okay, let's see where we're at. So you got all these beautiful colors. Okay. Next, for the cheese. So the recipe recommends a pepper jack cheese, and that you're going to go with a little bit less than probably what you need. Let me see what it's saying. Let's see what the cheese. I think it was like a half cup of cheese for the entire recipe. I would go with like an additional, I would go like 3/4 cup to a cup of the cheese, and then save some for the topping. And the reason why is the cheese is going to be what binds things together and holds it together. So let's look at what, so you got your protein at 6 grams per serving. You do have some fat, but here's the deal. There is so much fiber here, it's going to slow down things. So I wouldn't be too worried. Also, that fat is going to be needed for the flavor, the small amount of fat that's in the cheese. So I'm going to add about, so for half the recipe, it'd be 1/4 of a cup. I'm adding in probably 1/2 cup here, and then crumbled feta. I believe it calls for 1/4 cup. So this is a way of, so this is a good technique that they use. So they reduced the amount of the whole cheese and supplemented this feta. Now look at the feta. 5 grams protein, but your saturated fat is less compared to your general cheese. So that's a good thing. If you want to cut back calories and saturated fat, you can switch out. You can play around with the ratio of whatever shredded cheese you have, and then add a little bit more feta in place of it. So that's what this recipe did. That's one of the reasons why I chose it. Is it was a good technique if you want to add flavor and but reduce calories. So you're going to add a little bit of crumbled feta. Okay. And stir that. This is going to make a lot of the stuffing. I'm talking a lot. So you might have leftover that you can put in the fridge and use later in the week, on the weekend, or if you freeze it, just de-thaw it and you can use it.
That's what I was wondering, is could we freeze the extras?
Yeah, I think you can. I would probably just leave it in the fridge and use it later rather than freeze it, just because when you get cheese really cold, it can do some odd things, but you could probably get away with freezing it. There's enough, as long as it was airtight. Okay. There we go, we got our stuffing. All right, next you're going to proceed to stuffing the bell peppers. So you just spoon it in, and you want to, this is going to reduce a little bit as the water in the different vegetables evaporates out. So you really want to pack it in there so it holds its shape. So see? And then we're going to top it off with some more of the pepper jack cheese. Please, please, please be very careful when we get to the part where we transfer this into the oven, because those bell peppers can be a little unsteady. So if you're stuffing, see how I'm at an island and I'm going to be rotating? That's probably not the best practice. Probably be easier to have the baking sheet on the oven and on the top stove part, so that way you don't have to travel that much distance in moving the peppers. Okay, so I got that. I'll do this one. So you're stuffing your peppers. Okay, so I'm going to use this as leftover, so I'm going to bag this and probably use it over the weekend. You can taste it real fast just to see That's really good. Really, really good. All right, spicy. Let's go over the millet. So millet is a grain that used to be used a lot in the United States. It still is, but it's kind of fallen out of favor. Not that many people know what to use with it. It's very similar to how you cook it to quinoa. It looks like this. Okay, you can get it at Whole Foods. You can get it at different stores. You can also order it on Amazon, I'm assuming. But you just cook it like you do quinoa, and it's going to produce this milky liquid. After that's been cooked for about, so if I'm doing like 1 cup of millet, I would double the amount of water to 2.5 times the amount of water. So 2 cups of water to 2.5 cups of water for 1 cup of millet. Cook it for about 20 minutes. Then let it set. Then drain the water, rinse it. Okay, and then you'll have this like delicious flaky grain. Okay, and this goes really, really well with cheese. Kind of has a nutty taste, and it's high in fiber. And if you make a lot in a bunch, so whatever you don't use for this recipe, you can use this as a breakfast cereal. You can use this with some milk or soy milk in the morning, and then add some cinnamon and some vanilla extract. If you want to add sugar, that's on you, or some honey, that's on you. But it makes a really, really delightful breakfast cereal. All right, so I'm going to put a 1.5 cups of millet, and I'm just using a plastic container because I already know I'm going to be storing this. I'm going to have way too much. All right, I'm going to add the black beans. Okay, let's talk about I'm going to add the corn. Let's talk about our fresh ingredients. Okay, so you could do corn on the cob that you brought to a boil, you cooked for a few minutes, and then you cut off the corn off the cob. Hold on, I think someone may be trying to access. Okay, maybe not. Okay. Next, I have about a 1/2 cup. This was the heirloom tomatoes. You know those funky looking tomatoes that you find in the supermarket? They always have like a bend. That they're never symmetrical. They're kind of lopsided. Those taste amazing. Don't judge a book by its cover. Those heirloom tomatoes are so, so delicious. So grab the one that looks funky. Chop it up like you would a regular tomato. Just make sure to de-seed it. Squeeze out the seeds and chop it really finely. And it looks like a regular tomato once you chop it up, right? Okay. Those heirloom tomatoes are delicious. And they're all like multicolors. So that's another example of how you can use different colors to enhance your nutrition. Okay, I'm adding in the cilantro. You can add in parsley in place. Same amount of cilantro. Okay, so a lot of onion powder goes a long way. When you're cooking with fresh onions, so the recipe I believe called for a teaspoon of onion powder. I'm putting in a 1/2 cup of onion, okay, chopped onion. Because that onion just adds a wonderful layer of complexity. Okay, I have chopped zucchini squash, about a 1/2 cup, okay? Very, very closely chopped. The reason why it's a little bit more fibrous, so you want to chop it up more, so that way you're creating more surface area for it to cook thoroughly. Okay, adding that in, and it mixes better. Okay. I have 2 cloves of garlic that have been finely chopped. You can also use that garlic press tool. It's like a handheld garlic press. You put the garlic clove in, you squeeze it, and it pushes it through a mesh that breaks up the garlic. And again, for your chilies, for the heat, you can use chopped jalapenos. You can use the canned chilies if you want. I am going up on the heat because I like heat. Chopped serrano peppers. I'm using 1. That is purely optional. You do not have to do that. Okay. Stirring that. So this is the fresh veg with millet And you would pre-cook the millet. Once again, just like you're doing quinoa for this recipe, you would pre-cook the millet. It needs time to cook just like quinoa does. Okay, let's see what this looks like. So this is the millet variety, right? Then you have all that squash and the fresh produce. Okay. You're still going to add the cumin. So because I'm doing a half, so it'd be 1 teaspoon, I'm doing a half teaspoon because I'm only doing half the recipe. Because I added serrano pepper, and that's going to be really, really hot, I'm just going to add probably a 1/4 teaspoon of the chili powder, fresh pepper, and then lastly salt. We'll mix those together before we add in the cheese. All right, so same amount of cheese as you would, maybe a little bit more. Going to reserve some to place on top. Adding your feta. Stir that together, and then you will stuff it the same way into your peppers. Okay, let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so we got that nice stuffing. All right, let me fill these, and then we will put it into the oven. So your oven is set to 350 degrees. And we're going to top these off with a little bit more cheese, so that way they look pretty. And when I did this with the test trial, I did it for the shorter amount of time. That was a mistake. So it gives you a range of cooking it for 25 to 30 minutes. I would cook it for the full 30, okay? Which will put us right at 5:30 for this. And that's gives us time to talk about what's going to happen during July. I'll pull it out at the 25-minute mark, so that way you can see what it's going to look like. But understand you want to cook it for the full time, so that way it gives plenty of time for those peppers to soften and to cook. Now you can use this method as a great way of incorporating a high fiber, high nutrition meal with a variety of different vegetables. You don't have to use the same vegetables that I use. Okay, we're going to sprinkle more of the cheese on top so it looks nice and appealing. And this is one where you definitely want to, that cheese is going to melt, and it's going to not be as voluminous. So top it off. Okay, I'm going to pull the camera down so you can see what the tops of that look like. So you have your pepper, and then you have the tops with the cheese. We're going to put this into the oven. Just give me a moment. Sorry about the camera. All right, so oven is set to 350 degrees. Be very, very careful when you put it in. Very, very careful so that the bell peppers do not fall over. Okay, 25 to 30 minutes. I'm setting it at 25 so that way I can pull it out so you can see what it looks like. And then just understand I'm going to probably cook it for another 5 minutes just so that pepper is fully cooked. Let's talk about July. All right, so in July, I want to hear your feedback. What recipes would you like to explore? Are there any things that you want to see happen with this cooking demo? I still want to keep going on with Thursdays at 4:30, but if you have a different time that works better for you, I'll take that into consideration. So feel free to unmute and let me know your thoughts. I did have an idea that I wanted to position to you all. So usually in the summer months, you have a lot of fresh produce that's being available in the markets. And in the past, that's when people would, so starting at the end of summer and into your fall, you start doing different pickles, so pickling. So at least one day, I wanted to do a variety of different pickles that you could do. I think that would be cool. And you can post in the chat box, you can unmute. So going over that. One of the things that I really enjoy are, I don't know if any of you have had Lebanese food or a lot of food from the Eastern Mediterranean, but they use a lot of these pickled turnips. They look kind of almost neon pink because they're pickled with beets, a small amount of beets. And so it turns to this really, really flavorful, delicious pickle. So I was going to propose doing one night where we do pickles and then let them sit for a week or 5 days, and then see what everyone's pickles turned out to be like. So that's one. I would like to explore, so I know many of you have shown interest in gluten-free cooking. So one thing we could cover is corn tortillas, okay? And then taking corn tortillas to the next level in that, how many of you have heard of amaranth? Anyone heard of amaranth? I know, it's like, what? Amaranth, so we're cooking with quinoa tonight, right? And quinoa is a very, very, very nutrient-dense semi-grain. Quinoa has a cousin, a cousin species called amaranth. It originated in the Americas, and when the Spanish came to the Americas, the native peoples, First Nation peoples at the time, were making their corn tortillas with half corn but half amaranth, and they would do that process, nixtamalization process, where they would make their dough and they would make their tortillas that way. The Spanish, the colonial Spanish, outlawed amaranth, the use of amaranth, due to a lot of the practices that amaranth was involved in for the native religion. And because of that, the corn tortillas lost a lot of their nutrition that a lot of the native peoples relied upon. So you saw a big change in the nutrition levels during that time. Amaranth, however, survived. It still is used, but it spread through trade, right, after in the colonial era, to other places. And guess where it's used all the time? It's used in a lot of Indian cuisine. So part of me was like, maybe we could do a tutorial on corn tortillas, right? And we can make tacos together. And then maybe next day we can explore amaranth and other types of cuisine. So it's just some ideas, and you can post ideas of things that you may want to try in the chat box, or if you want to unmute and talk.
Well, I was going to ask about maybe a fish or shrimp taco. Maybe that could go with that idea, and we could combine those.
I would love that. I think a fish or shrimp taco would be great. I think that would be really good. So we could do corn tortilla, shrimp or fish taco, and then for the vegetarians, I can do a tofu taco. I'll show you that as well. Those are really quick. So I like that. Yeah. Any other ideas that are coming in mind?
Well, I'll go again. I don't want to take over, but one of the other things I need help with are root vegetables, the unusual ones, like beets,
Beets?
turnips, maybe fennel. I've heard stuff about fennel, and I have no idea how to cook with any of those things.
Okay, so beets, turnips, and fennel. Yes, absolutely. Fennel is an awesome one. It's really good. So yeah, I think that would be a good one. Because you always see it in the supermarket, right? And it's like, what do you do with that?
Or hear comedians making jokes about it or something, you know, and you're like, maybe I should need to know what that is.
Right. And they're all very, very nutritious. Very nutritious. So yeah, I can look up that, and we can do root veggies, a root veggie day. Okay. Any other ideas that are coming up? The root veggies, corn, tortillas, and fish taco, tofu taco. We'll see where we're at on our time. So got a little bit longer. So let's talk about real fast while we're waiting to the different nutrients that you're getting from this dish that we're making right now. So the peppers have a bioavailable compound. So we got one more. Rachel said, I need help on how to make tempeh in different ways. Okay, tempeh, I like that. Tempeh and vegetarian dishes. You know, actually, that might be a good thing to explore when we do the tacos too, because you could do a tempeh taco too. Or we could do all tempeh too. Okay, so the peppers have capsaicin, and that is what makes them a little spicy, right? That chemical really helps with our personal nutrition, but there are some studies, and this is one of the things where I encourage you to do your own research, okay, that some studies have purported that it may elevate your metabolic rate slightly. It also may help reduce inflammation. So if you're someone who is looking to help, use your food, to help reduce inflammation, that might be a good choice. With all of these, though, there's always like some study that contradicts everything. So that's why I encourage you to make your own decision. This dish has cumin, which is another spice that has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. It also helps if you're an asthmatic. Of course, you have the chili powder, which has that heat. The bioavailable nutrients in the peppers, in the corn, the black beans. The whole it went blank. It just needs to wake. Still getting the camera. All right. The peppers. Where was that? Okay, so you have corn. You have squash. It's a very, very fibrous food. So think about it this way when we use fiber in our diets. So one, it keeps us regular, right? It helps you to keep a very healthy gut. More importantly, though, that fiber, okay, think of it this way. When you take a shower and hair falls into the drain, and let's say we don't do anything to clean up, that hair is going to form like a ball, right? And it's going to start to clog. And so you have to pull it out, right? Think of fiber creating this kind of gel that coats your intestinal tract. And when you eat a carbohydrate, it slows down how quickly that carbohydrate enters into your bloodstream. So that is very beneficial for us if we're wanting to lose weight, because when we eat more fibrous food, it slows down that entry of the sugar into our bloodstream. So our blood glucose level doesn't really spike. It spikes a little bit, but it's more even versus if we eat like, you know, pure sugar or honey and it just spikes up and then drops and we crash. So you probably felt this, like when you know you're at a party and you eat a lot of, like, let's say they had a lot of desserts or something, you eat that and you get really, really hyper, and then suddenly afterwards you're just kind of like, ugh, you know, that crash. That's sometimes what happens with our blood glucose. So when we do foods with a lot of fiber, when we, you know, adopt that into our eating philosophy, it helps us better regulate our blood glucose level. Also, the fiber serves a very important part in helping us metabolize fat. This is how. When fat is broken down, we have different byproducts, like you urinate it out, your liver processes it. It's a little bit more complicated than what I'm saying, but you also have these bile salts, and those need to stick onto things to be evacuated out of our system. And fiber is one of the things that can stick onto. So when we have plenty of fiber, it helps to move that system along, so that way we are staying regular, we are supporting our ability to process fat and use it in as a fuel source and get it out of the body once it's broken down. So it's kind of cool. Think of it as this way: when you have plenty of water, fiber, okay, and exercise, whether it be like, you know, just common walking or whatnot, into your day, you have created an open freeway for your metabolism. It's like, yes, right? There's no traffic jams, you know, on the 59 or the 610, right? But when we're not getting one of those, it can slow the process down. So we may be doing other things right, but we're not having nutritious food that's rich in fiber and a variety of colors. When we're not exercising, not getting enough water, something will slow down. So this is a great way, great way to eat healthy. That's why I don't feel so bad about putting a little bit more cheese on this one. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so it's about 12 minutes still. I'm going to check on it, just see with the oven light. Okay, I'm going to turn on the camera again so that way you can see what it looks like. Okay, let's see if the camera will recognize. Yes. Okay, you ready? So, you're seeing me. This is what we have in the oven right now. See how it's crackling? And that cheese melted. So I would probably needed to put a little bit more cheese on. But that's okay. All right, I'm going to switch back to so once it's done cooking, you want to pull them out and just let them take, you know, very carefully with like an oven mitt, just transfer them onto a plate for them to cool. The serving size is 1 pepper, obviously, per person. And you can, you know, so 6 peppers would be 6 people. If you're really hungry, you could eat another one, but we found it to be really difficult to eat more than one. It's just, there's so much fiber in these, it's going to be very, very filling. So that's one of the good benefits of this. So you would just let it set aside and cool down where you can eat it with a knife and fork. And then as you cut in, you'll have that delicious cheese come in, and you'll have the sweetness of the pepper, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful delight. Let's talk about wine pairings. You could do this with a nice white wine would be a good pairing, a type of white wine that can handle that spice, okay? So that would be good. I probably wouldn't go with a red on this one. It'd probably be a delicious, crisp, refreshing white wine. All right, So any questions about the meal that we've made thus far? Okay. So if you need to jet, it is 5:19. Totally understand. And I will see you next week. I'll be posting the new recipe list on the website, so that way you can look at that. We'll be doing definitely the corn tortillas with the fish and maybe tempeh. And then I really like the idea of the root veggies, cooking with root veggies. And then Rachel, I really like your idea with cooking with tempeh. That's a good idea. So we can definitely check that out. Thank you, Sherry. It was good to have you join us. So yeah, just keep looking. Post it. You can stay on. I will go till the 25-minute mark, so that way you can see what the end result would look like. We can keep chatting. But if you got to go, totally understand.
I want to learn how to do the pickling too. That I'm on board for that.
Okay, for the pickling.
Okay.
I think that'd be cool. Because we could do like the pickled turnip, and then we could do like maybe your standard pickled cucumber. Yeah. So I'll look at some and just look at the time requirement that we have and what we can get done in that short space. I think there's a lot of good stuff. Because if you look at it, traditionally, before we had refrigeration and all these things, this would be the time when you would be putting things aside. We could do lime pickles. Oh, those are good. So you'd be getting your produce in jars, so that way you can, have them for the colder months. So that'll be good. Be a good thing to try.
I just put up 3 bushels of purple hull peas in the freezer, and thank goodness for the freezer, because that would not have been fun to have to can 3 bushels of purple hull peas. Yeah.
Oh, that would be a lot. That would definitely be a lot. Do you all like spicy? Do you like spicy food? Or and when I say spicy, not necessarily like hot spicy, but like, for instance, so there's like Indian, Ethiopian foods, definitely Mexican food, because we could get in, we could explore a little bit more with the different spices that we use.
I love spices, so I'm good.
On board with that?
With spice.
Okay, cool. Like fenugreek. Fenugreek's a really good one to try out. Yeah, we'll do a spice exploration. There's an Ethiopian red lentils dish that is amazing. Oh, that would be a good one. We can make vegetable stock in preparation for Ethiopian red lentils. That would be really good. They're amazing. They are amazing. Okay, let's see where we're at on the time. Got about 6 more minutes. Kelly, are you following along, or are you watching this one?
No, mine are in the oven.
You're in the oven? Okay, good.
Mm-hmm. And my younger daughter is here asking me how much longer. So.
Yeah. Have you tried fenugreek leaves? Yes. Oh my goodness. So the meti leaves. Rachel asked, have you tried fenugreek leaves? Yes. They are excellent to use in different cuisines. So for those of you, okay, fenugreek, just going to give you background. I think it's indigenous to South Asia all the way up through Central Asia. And then from there, it's spread into different cuisines all around. And it is a very, very, very delicious spice that can be used in different curries. If you eat meat, you can use it with different meats. The leaves, I don't know how to describe the flavor of the leaves. It's just wonderful. It just makes everything better. This like herby deliciousness. So yeah, we can definitely explore fenugreek. Trying to think what else. In Ethiopian food, there's another. They use a spice blend called berbere, and or berbere. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but it's a spice blend that incorporates. You can find this already pre-made at stores, but if you go to your, if you can order it online, specifically from an Ethiopian vendor, it's going to have like a different spice profile than what you could get at like at your like supermarket spice blend. That is amazing, just absolutely amazing. So yeah, we can definitely explore different areas and area cuisines. There's some more. There's a lot that we can do with quinoa. Let's see. Rachel says, "Why don't we explore to make a loaf of artisan bread?" Yeah, definitely. Do you want to try like a sourdough? I can take you through a sourdough.
Yeah, sourdough will be great. I looked at the recipe and I'm like, that is a lot of work. So if you can make it easy for me,
Oh yeah,
I'd be happy.
yeah. You know what we could do? So starting next week, I can show you how to make a sourdough starter, and then show you how to feed it. And then sourdough is literally the lazy baker's bread, because the culture makes the bread for you. Like it does everything. It looks really complicated on the outside, right? But once you go through the steps, it's not that. I mean, you have to feed it once, but every day for like the first week. But once the culture is pretty strong, you only have to feed it like once a week. You can keep it in the fridge and just pull it out whenever you want to make your bread loaf. And you can use the leftover starter, because you dump some out. You can use the leftover starter for they call it the what is it, the savory pancake. So you make like, it's almost like a crepe with the starter. Let's talk about that real fast. Sourdough has a culture, like a lactobacillus culture and yeast culture in it, right? So that culture changes the nutrition of the bread, and it locks a lot of the minerals in the bread, but also it lowers it on the glycemic index. So, white flour can be really high on the glycemic index. That's why we like it. That's why it tastes so good. You're like, delicious. But that starter converts it and lowers it. So that way it's like, sourdough is typically a true sourdough, not the sourdough where people just added vinegar, right? The true sourdough that's been changed by a culture can be really, really good for folks who want bread but lower on the glycemic scale. So like diabetics would be a good better choice, right? And that culture, yeah, once you have it started, you just have to feed it once a week. And it's also very forgiving. Sourdough culture is very forgiving. So I've gone like upwards of a month without remembering to feed it, and it's been fine. So yeah, so we can definitely do that. For those of you, maybe we do that. Maybe we do next week, we just focus on the tortillas and how to get those ready, and we can do a sourdough culture. And then that following week, we do the tacos. We'll see. I'll time it. I'll time it over the weekend, and we'll see. I'll come up with the recipe list. All right. We are at 35 seconds. I'm going to get my oven mitts on, and then I'm going to pull it out of the oven, and then I'll get the camera switched over so you can see what it looks like. Now, this is going to be at 25 minutes. I recommend going the full 30, so the pepper is fully cooked. But that's up to you. switching this over. And Epoch camera doesn't want to do, so I'm just going to move the laptop and show you. Just a second. Alrighty, so Zoom doesn't like me today. It's changing camera angles. Rear, camera, go. Ta-da! So look at that. So from a side view, and then going all the way with that cheesy deliciousness on top. So it should have like a little bit of a crust, and then these should be fully cooked. I'm gonna leave mine in a little bit longer, but you can pull them out at 25 minutes. It's gonna be crunchy and not as soft if you cook it at 25 minutes. Alrighty, so I want to thank each of you for joining me today. It looks real good. I'm coming over. Yes, Rachel, definitely. All right, so I want to thank each of you for coming today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. I will have it posted. Please tell folks about this and have them join you. All right, I'm going to sign off, and bon appetit, everyone.